My son begged me for $50,000 to fund his wife's flimsy startup, promising it was a sure thing. I told them I'd see what I could do, but their arrogance hit a cruel past I couldn't ignore. So I made one phone call and invested 10 times that amount into their biggest competitor, a company run by the very woman my daughter-in-law tried to destroy years ago. Before we dive into this intense story, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss what happens next. We'd also love to know where you're all tuning in from. Let us know in the comments. The silence in my study was a comfortable, familiar thing. It was the sound of a life well lived, of challenges met and overcome. At 59, I had earned this quiet. The hum of the wine fridge in the corner, the scent of old leather and paper, the weight of a heavy crystal glass in my hand, these were the spoils of a long career spent building a logistics empire from the ground up. I was retired, content, and at peace. Then the doorbell rang and my peace shattered. It was my son Michael and his wife Brenda. They stood on my doorstep with the kind of strained, overly bright smiles that signal an ambush. Michael, my only child, looked nervous, his eyes darting around as if he were a teenager about to ask for the car keys after getting a bad report card. Brenda, however, was the picture of confidence. She held a sleek, leather-bound portfolio under her arm, and her smile was a little too sharp, a little too practiced. "Dad, so good to see you," Michael said, giving me a quick, awkward hug. "Chester, you're looking wonderful," Brenda chimed in, her voice smooth as polished marble. "Retirement certainly agrees with you." I led them into the study, the heart of my home, and offered them a drink. Michael asked for water. Brenda asked for a specific brand of sparkling water with a slice of lime, which of course I didn't have. She settled for plain water with a look of minor martyrdom. They sat opposite my large oak desk, the portfolio placed between them like a sacred text. For a few minutes, we engaged in the usual dance of small talk. I asked about Michael's job in marketing, and he gave vague, satisfactory answers. I asked about their new apartment, and Brenda launched into a detailed complaint about the fixtures. I listened, my years as a CEO having trained me to hear the words people don't say. I heard a deep dissatisfaction in Brenda's tone, a restless ambition that saw her current life as a mere stepping stone. And I saw in my son a desperate need to please her. Finally, the pleasantries exhausted themselves, and the true purpose of their visit emerged. "Dad," Michael began, leaning forward, his hands clasped nervously on his knees. "We actually wanted to talk to you about something big." Brenda opened the portfolio. "It's an opportunity, Chester," she said, her eyes gleaming. "A once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and we wanted you to be a part of it." She slid a document across my desk. It was printed on thick, glossy cardstock. At the top, in an elegant flowing script, were the words "Elan Vital." Beneath it, the tagline, "Curated Existence, Delivered." I picked it up. The paper felt expensive, but the words felt hollow. "What is Elan Vital?" I asked, keeping my tone neutral. "It's my startup," Brenda announced, puffing her chest out slightly. "We're going to revolutionize the wellness and lifestyle market. We're not just selling products, Chester, we're selling an identity. Each month, our subscribers will receive a box curated by me, filled with bespoke items, artisanal soaps, exclusive fashion accessories, organic snacks, mindfulness guides. Everything the modern person needs to live their best life." I flipped through the proposal. It was full of buzzwords like synergy, disruption, and brand actualization, but it was desperately thin on actual numbers. There were no supply chain logistics, no detailed cost analysis, no customer acquisition strategy beyond social media influencing. It was a wish list, not a business plan. I had seen more detailed plans sketched on cocktail napkins. "And what do you need from me?" I asked, already knowing the answer. Michael took a deep breath. "We need an initial investment, Dad, $50,000. It's for inventory, platform development, and marketing. It's a sure thing. Our projections show you'll get it back tenfold within 3 years." Tenfold? The number hung in the air, audacious and absurd. I looked at the flimsy projections based on nothing more than Brenda's belief in her own impeccable taste. I looked at my son, his face a mask of hopeful pleading, so clearly parroting lines that had been fed to him. He wasn't seeing the massive holes in the plan, he was only seeing his wife's dream, and he was desperate to make it come true for her. My heart ached for him. This wasn't the sharp, independent young man I had raised. This was someone caught in an orb. He couldn't escape, pulled along by a gravity far stronger than his own. My late wife Helen had always worried about Michael's gentle nature. "He feels things so deeply, Chester," she used to say. "He needs a partner who will protect his heart, not one who will use it." I looked at Brenda, whose smile hadn't wavered. She saw me not as a father, but as a bank. An obstacle to be managed, a resource to be tapped. The warmth she projected was a thin veneer over a core of cold, hard ambition. I closed the portfolio and pushed it gently back across the desk. I looked my son in the eye, bypassing Brenda entirely. "Let me see what I can do," I said quietly. Michael's face flooded with relief. "Oh, thank you, Dad, thank you, you won't regret this." Brenda's smile widened, a victor's smile. "I knew you'd see the vision, Chester," she said. They left soon after, buzzing with excitement, their mission accomplished. I walked them to the door, gave my son another hug, and watched them drive away. As their car disappeared down the street, I went back to my study, the silence no longer comfortable. It was heavy now, filled with a profound sense of disappointment. It wasn't about the money. $50,000 was a trifle. It was about what the request represented. The erosion of my son's judgment, the confirmation of his wife's character, and the gaping disconnect between effort and entitlement. The betrayal wasn't in their asking for money. It was in their assumption that I was too old, too out of touch, to see their hollow plan for exactly what it was. The following morning, I sat at my desk with a cup of black coffee, the Elan Vital proposal open before me. In the harsh light of day, it looked even more pathetic. The images were stock photos, the text was a word salad of corporate cliches, and the financial projections were pure fantasy. It was a teenager's daydream dressed up in a fancy binder. I felt a fresh wave of sorrow for Michael. He was a smart kid, a great marketing manager at his firm, but he was utterly blind when it came to Brenda. He saw a passionate visionary, I saw a narcissist with a credit card. He saw a future captain of industry, I saw a woman who believed her own hype was a substitute for hard work. My finger traced the lines of text, and then I stopped. On page 4, under a section titled Market Competition, was a short list of other companies in the curated lifestyle space. Most were large, established brands, but one name was smaller, newer, Aura Collective. The name was followed by a dismissive sentence written by Brenda, "A minor player with a limited niche appeal that poses no significant threat." Aura Collective, the name struck a chord deep in my memory. I closed my eyes trying to place it. It wasn't the company itself I recognized, but the name of its founder mentioned in a footnote, Sophia Hayes. Sophia Hayes. The name echoed from over a decade ago. It came from a phone call I had received late one night. Michael was in his first year of college and he was deeply upset. He was calling me because he didn't know what to do. He just witnessed something that had shaken him. His girlfriend at the time, Brenda, and her circle of friends had cornered a quiet girl from their dormitory, a scholarship student named Sophia Hayes. Michael's voice had been choked with shame as he described the scene. Brenda had led the charge, mocking Sophia's second-hand clothes, her studious nature, her lack of social standing. It wasn't just teasing, it was cruel, systematic torment designed to isolate and humiliate. Brenda had knocked a stack of books from Sophia's arms, scattering papers across the wet campus lawn, and had laughed as the girl scrambled to pick them up, her face streaked with tears. "I didn't do anything, Dad," Michael had confessed, his voice cracking. "I just stood there. Brenda told me to mind my own business, that the girl was a social climbing loser who needed to be put in her place." At the time, I had advised my son to do the right thing, to apologize to the girl, to stand up to Brenda. He promised he would, but I always suspected he hadn't. He was too intimidated by Brenda even then. The incident had been a massive red flag, one I had pointed out to him. But he was young and infatuated, and he had made excuses for her behavior. Eventually, the memory faded, buried under the forward momentum of life. They stayed together, and a few years after graduation, they were married. But I hadn't forgotten. I had never forgotten the name Sophia Hayes or the chilling cruelty my son had described. Now here was that name again, in a proposal written by the very person who had inflicted that pain. Brenda had dismissed her former victim as a minor player. The arrogance was breathtaking. She either didn't remember the name, or she did and felt nothing but contempt. Either way, it spoke volumes about her character. A new feeling began to stir within me, disbelief. Acing the sorrow, it was a cold, sharp feeling of resolve. This was no longer just about a bad business idea. It was about justice. It was about character. My son and his wife had come to me for an investment based on empty promises, while completely ignoring the real-world success of someone they had once tried to break. I leaned back in my chair, a grim smile touching my lips. My career in logistics had been built on seeing the whole board, understanding every moving part, and making strategic decisions based on data and character. Brenda and Michael had made a critical error. They saw me as a retired old man, a wallet to be opened. They had shown me their flimsy plan, confident in their ability to manipulate me. But they had forgotten one crucial thing. They had forgotten that memory is long, and a good CEO never, ever forgets a name. My wife Helen and I had built our life on a foundation of mutual respect and hard work. She was a teacher, patient and insightful, while I was a born problem solver, seeing the world as a series of logistical puzzles to be solved. We poured everything we had into two things, my fledgling logistics company and our son, Michael. We weren't born into wealth, we built it, one contract, one shipment, one long night at a time. I made sure Michael understood the value of a dollar because he saw the effort that went into earning it. He was a good kid, sensitive and kind, with his mother's gentle heart. He never gave us a day of trouble. When Helen passed away from cancer just after Michael started college, it was just the two of us. I doubled down on my commitment to him, determined to be both father and mother. I paid for his education, helped him with the down payment on his first car, and was the proudest man in the room when he graduated. My greatest hope was that he would find a partner who cherished his gentle spirit as Helen and I had. Then he married Brenda. From the beginning, Brenda was different. She came from a family that had old money but no longer had much of the actual money. They had the name, the connections, and the unshakable sense of entitlement that comes with it. When I first met her, she was polished, charming, and impeccably dressed. She praised my home, my success, my taste. But even then, there were small, dissonant notes. She had a way of looking at objects, my watch, my car, a painting on the wall, with a calculating gleam in her eye, as if she were mentally appraising everything. Over the years, her influence on Michael became more and more apparent. He started dressing differently in trendier, more expensive clothes that didn't quite seem like him. He talked less about his passions and more about the importance of networking and building a personal brand. These were Brenda's words, not his. She was molding him, sanding down his gentle, thoughtful edges to fit her sharp, ambitious mold. She was an expert at the subtle dig, the backhanded compliment. "Oh, Chester, this old house has so much character," she'd say, her eyes sweeping over the comfortable, lived-in furniture Helen had picked out. "We'd love to help you modernize it a bit." She often spoke of my retirement not as a well-earned rest, but as a kind of stagnation. "It's so important to stay relevant," she'd comment, looking pointedly at me. "You can't just stop growing." Her ambition was a consuming fire. She wasn't interested in building something slowly the way I had. She wanted instant success, the kind that came with magazine features and fawning social media followers. Her Elan Vital idea was the perfect encapsulation of her personality, all surface, no substance. It was a brand built on the idea of luxury, the appearance of wellness, without any of the underlying work or authenticity. The incident with Sophia Hayes in college was the key that unlocked her character for me. It wasn't a youthful mistake. It was a demonstration of her core belief system. She saw the world as a hierarchy. There were people like her at the top and people like Sophia at the bottom. The people at the bottom existed to be stepped on. The fact that she had either forgotten Sophia or simply didn't care that her former victim was now a competitor spoke not of a lapse in memory, but of a profound lack of empathy. Sophia Hayes had never been a person to her, just an obstacle, an object of scorn. Now she was a minor player, an insignificant fly to be swatted away. I thought of Sophia, the quiet, hardworking scholarship student. I imagined the grit and resilience it must have taken to endure that kind of torment and not only survive but thrive. To pull herself up and build a real company from scratch, while the bully who tried to break her was now coming to her victim's father for a handout to fund a vanity project. The irony was so thick I could taste it. My decision solidified. I was not going to give my son and his wife $50,000 to pour into a black hole of ego and poor planning. That wasn't an investment, it was an enablement. It would teach them nothing. Instead, I was going to make a real investment, an investment in character, in resilience, in hard work, an investment in Sophia Hayes. My passive disappointment had now curdled into active strategy. I was no longer a sad father lamenting his son's poor choices. I was a CEO again, and I had identified an undervalued asset with massive growth potential. The mission was clear. Investigate Aura Collective, verify its viability, and if it was as solid as I suspected, make a strategic move that would achieve two goals: a sound financial return and the delivery of a long-overdue lesson in humility. I didn't reach out to Sophia Hayes directly. That would be premature. In the world of high-stakes logistics and investment, you do your due diligence first. You don't walk into a meeting blind. I still had my network, a formidable collection of contacts built over 40 years. I made my first call to a man named George, a veteran market analyst I'd trusted with millions of dollars in decisions over the years. "George, it's Chester," I said when he picked up. "I need you to run a deep analysis on a small e-commerce startup, Aura Collective. I want everything you can find: financial health, supply chain, market penetration, leadership, customer reviews, the works, and I need it to be discreet." George, ever the professional, simply said, "You'll have a preliminary report by Wednesday." While George's team went to work on the data, I did my own research. I spent hours on the Aura Collective website. It was the antithesis of Brenda's proposal. The design was clean, user-friendly, and authentic. The products weren't generic lifestyle items, they were sourced from small, independent artisans, many of whom were women or minority-owned businesses. Each product page told a story about the creator. This wasn't just curated existence, it was conscious commerce. It had a soul. The business model was clever. Instead of a one-size-fits-all subscription box, it used an AI-driven questionnaire to tailor recommendations to individual customers. It was smart, targeted, and data-driven. I read through dozens of customer reviews. They were overwhelmingly positive, praising the quality of the products and the personal touch of the service. One review stuck with me. It feels like Aura Collective actually listens. Brenda wanted to tell people who they should be. Sophia Hayes was helping people discover who they were. The difference was immense. On Wednesday, George's report arrived. It was even better than I'd hoped. Aura Collective was lean, efficient, and profitable. It had a loyal, rapidly growing customer base and virtually no debt. Its supply chain was robust and ethically sourced. The only thing holding it back was capital. The company was at a critical inflection point where a significant cash injection could catapult it from a niche player to a market leader. George's final summary was blunt. This is a unicorn in the making. Whoever gets in now is going to make a fortune. The report confirmed it. My move wasn't just about sentiment or revenge, it was a brilliant business decision. The clever trap, as it were, wasn't some legal loophole I'd set. It was my knowledge, my capital, and my ability to recognize true value when I saw it. Brenda and Michael had handed me the opportunity on a silver platter. They had pointed me directly to the gold mine they were too arrogant to see. Now it was time for the final step of my investigation, meeting the founder. I asked George to arrange a meeting with Sophia Hayes, framing me as a private investor looking for opportunities in the e-commerce space. Her name was to be brought up as a recommendation from his firm. No connection to me or my family was to be mentioned. A day later, the meeting was set, Friday afternoon at her office. A feeling of grim satisfaction settled over me. Brenda and Michael were probably wondering when I was going to call with the good news about their loan. They were waiting for a handout. Little did they know, I was preparing to make a real investment in the future, just not theirs. The offices of Aura Collective were not what I expected. They were located in a repurposed warehouse district, a part of the city humming with new life. The space was open concept, filled with natural light, green plants, and the quiet, focused energy of people who genuinely enjoyed their work. There were no empty slogans on the walls, no pretentious displays of wealth. It was a place built for work, not for show. Sophia Hayes met me at the entrance. She was a tall, composed woman with intelligent eyes that held a hint of caution. She wore a simple black dress and carried herself with an understated confidence that Brenda, for all her bluster, could never hope to emulate. There were faint, lingering traces of the quiet, studious girl Michael had described, but they were overlaid with the strength of a cerveau. "Zor, Mr. Thompson, thank you for coming," she said, shaking my hand. Her grip was firm. "I'm Sophia Hayes." "The pleasure is all mine, Ms. Hayes. Please call me Chester," I replied. She led me on a tour of the facility. She showed me the inventory section where each item was carefully cataloged and stored. She introduced me to her head of technology, a young man who enthusiastically explained the recommendation algorithm he'd built. She spoke about her suppliers with genuine affection, calling them her partners. Every word she spoke, every detail she pointed out, reinforced what George's report had told me. This was a solid, well-run operation built on a foundation of integrity. Finally, we settled in her modest office, a simple room with a large window overlooking the city. She laid out her 5-year plan with a clarity and precision that was music to my ears. She knew her numbers inside and out. She had identified her target markets, anticipated potential challenges, and had contingency plans in place. She wasn't selling a dream, she was executing a strategy. "Our biggest hurdle right now is scaling," she concluded, her expression serious. "We have the demand, but we need to expand our infrastructure to meet it without compromising on the quality and personal touch that defines our brand. That requires capital." I listened intently, nodding along. I asked a few pointed questions about her margins and supply chain vulnerabilities. She answered everyone without hesitation, backing her claims with data. After about an hour, I was convinced. This was one of the soundest investment opportunities I had seen in years. Now came the difficult parts. I leaned back in my chair, adopting a more personal tone. "Sophia," I said, my voice softer now, "your drive and your success are incredibly impressive. May I ask what personally motivates you, what led you to start Aura Collective?" A shadow passed over her face just for a second before she composed herself. I believe in celebrating genuine craftsmanship, she began, and I wanted to create a space that was inclusive and positive, a place where people felt seen and valued. That's a noble goal, I said. It's a tough world, people aren't always kind. Her eyes met mine and I could see a flicker of old pain. No, she said quietly, they are not. This was the moment I had to tread carefully. I'm going to be frank with you, I said. My interest in your company is twofold. First, as an investor, I believe it's a brilliant business. Second, my interest is personal. I know who you are, Sophia. Or rather, I know what you went through in college. Her composure cracked, a look of stunned confusion washed over her face. I don't understand. My son was Michael Thompson, I said gently. He was a student at your university. He was dating a young woman named Brenda. The color drained from Sophia's face. She stared at me speechless. The name, spoken aloud in this safe space she had built for herself, was like a ghost appearing at a feast. Michael told me what happened back then, I continued. He told me how Brenda and her friends treated you. He was ashamed of his inaction, and frankly, so was I. I never forgot it, and I never forgot your name. Tears welled in Sophia's eyes, but she did not let them fall. She held my gaze, her jaw tight with the effort of keeping her emotions in check. Why are you telling me this now? She whispered. Because Brenda and my son came to me 2 days ago, I said, my voice turning to steel. They asked me to invest in her new company, a direct competitor to yours. She dismissed Aura Collective in her proposal as a minor player. A single, bitter laugh escaped Sophia's lips. It was a sound full of pain and irony. Of course she did, she said, finally looking away, wiping at her eye with the back of her hand. To people like her, people like me are always minor. Not to me, I said firmly. To me, you are the major player. You are the one who built something real from nothing. You are the one who endured and overcame. Brenda is asking for a $50,000 handout for a vanity project. I am here today to offer you a $500,000 investment to help you build your empire. She stared at me, her mouth slightly agape. Shock, disbelief, and a dozen other emotions warred on her face. 500, why? Because it's the single best business decision I can make, I said, leaning forward. And because character is the most valuable asset there is, and yours, Ms. Hayes, is extraordinary. I don't invest in flimsy proposals. I invest in people. And I believe in you. The dam broke. The tears she had been holding back finally streamed down her face, but they were not tears of sadness. They were tears of shock, of vindication, of a decade of buried pain finally being acknowledged and answered. This was the first confrontation, the first reveal. The truth of the past finally brought into tea. The light had solidified our future. The next few days were a blur of productive activity. My lawyers and Sophia's worked together to draft the investment agreement. It was a straightforward deal. I would acquire a 20% stake in Aura Collective for my $500,000, and I would take a seat on the board as an advisor. For me, it was about more than just the money. It was a chance to mentor a deserving entrepreneur, to put my years of experience to good use once more. Sophia was energized, her initial shock replaced by a fierce determination. The investment wasn't just capital, it was validation. Meanwhile, the silence from my end had clearly made Michael and Brenda antsy. I received a series of texts from my son. Monday, 10:15 a.m. Hey Dad, just checking in, hope you had a good weekend. Tuesday, 2:30 p.m. Brenda and I found the perfect office space, just need to lock it down soon. Any thoughts on the proposal? Wednesday, 9:00 a.m. Dad, is everything okay? I ignored them. I needed to let the pressure build. I needed them to walk into our next meeting with the full weight of their expectant greed on their shoulders. On Thursday, once the papers with Sophia were signed and the money transfer was initiated, I finally responded. Michael, I texted, let's meet for dinner tonight, my house, 7 o'clock, we'll discuss the investment. His reply was instantaneous. Great, see you then. That evening, they arrived right on time, their faces alight with anticipation. Brenda was wearing a new dress that looked conspicuously expensive, and she carried a bottle of champagne. The gesture was meant to look celebratory, but it felt presumptuous. Chester, she trilled, handing me the bottle. We have a feeling tonight's a special night. Let's not get ahead of ourselves, I said, my tone flat. I didn't take the bottle, leaving her holding it awkwardly for a moment before she set it on a side table. I led them into the living room, not the study this time. I wanted this to feel less like a business meeting and more like the family reckoning it was. They sat on the edge of the sofa, a pair of coiled springs. So Michael began, unable to contain himself. What did you decide? I let the silence hang in the air for a beat too long, watching them. Then I looked directly at my son. Michael, I've thought long and hard about your request, and I've decided I cannot give you the $50,000. The smiles vanished from their faces. Michael looked confused, hurt. What, Dad, why? You said you'd see what you could do. Brenda's reaction was faster, sharper. Her polite mask began to crack. Chester, I don't think you understand the scale of this opportunity, she said, her voice losing its silky quality. This isn't a gamble, it's a guaranteed success. We've already picked out an office. An office for a business with no viable plan is just 4 expensive walls, I stated calmly. I reviewed your proposal. It's not a plan, it's a fantasy. It lacks basic market research, a logistical strategy, and a realistic financial model. As an investment, it's irresponsible. Irresponsible, Brenda scoffed, her voice rising. My family has been in business for generations. I know what I'm doing. Your family name isn't a business plan, Brenda, I retorted. Hard work is a business plan, data is a business plan, character is a business plan, and on that front your proposal is particularly bankrupt. Michael looked utterly lost. Dad, what are you talking about, character? This was it, the second, more powerful confrontation. I am not funding Elan Vital, I announced, my voice cold and clear. However, I did make an investment this week, a significant one. I've invested $500,000 in a promising startup in the e-commerce lifestyle space. Brenda's eyes widened, a flicker of avarice in them. You invested in another company, who? I leaned forward, savoring the moment. I looked past Brenda, past Michael, and spoke the name into the quiet room. A company called Aura Collective. It's run by a brilliant, resilient young woman. I'm sure you remember her. Her name is Sophia Hayes. The name hit Brenda like a physical blow. She recoiled as if I'd slapped her. Her face, which had been flushed with anger, turned deathly pale. She stared at me, her mouth opening and closing, but no sound came out. Michael's brow furrowed in confusion. Sophia Hayes, Dad, why does that name sound familiar? But Brenda knew. Oh, she knew. The past she had tried to bury had just been spectacularly exhumed and placed in the center of my living room. Her attempt to secure her future had collided head-on with her history of cruelty, and the wreckage was just beginning to smolder. Sophia Hayes, Michael repeated, a dawning horror spreading across his face as the memory finally surfaced. He looked from me to his wife, whose face had become a frozen mask of disbelief. Wait, Brenda, isn't that? Brenda found her voice, and it was a shriek. You did what? She screeched, pointing a trembling finger at me. You gave her our money. Are you insane? It was never your money, Brenda, I said, my voice dangerously calm. It was my money, and I invested it in a superior business run by a person of superior character. Superior character, she spat the words, her carefully constructed facade of elegance shattering into a million pieces. She was a nobody, a charity case who snuck into a school she couldn't afford. She deserved everything she got. The sheer venom in her voice stunned Michael into silence. He stared at his wife as if seeing her for the first time. The charming, ambitious woman he adored had vanished, replaced by a snarling stranger filled with a decade-old hatred. She deserved to be humiliated, to have her property destroyed, to be systematically bullied by you and your friends, I challenged, my voice rising to match hers. Is that the kind of character you were planning to build your brand on, Brenda, the kind that preys on the vulnerable? You don't know anything, she yelled, her eyes wild. You're just a bitter old man jealous of our success. What success? I shot back. You haven't succeeded at anything. You came here to beg for money for a sham company, and you had the gall to list your victim as an insignificant competitor. Did you think I wouldn't remember? Did you think your past actions would have no consequences? It was college. Everyone does stupid things in college, she screamed, now pleading with Michael, who was looking at her with revulsion. Michael, baby, tell him it was just a joke. A joke, Michael finally spoke, his voice low and shaking. I saw her crying, Brenda, I saw you laughing. You told me she was a loser who needed to be put in her place. I never forgot that. I chose to bury it. I made excuses for you. So what? Brenda turned on him now, her desperation making her even crueler. You're going to take his side, the side of some pathetic nobody against your own wife. After everything I've done for you, I gave you a life, a status you could never have achieved on your own. It was a fatal misstep. In her panic, she had revealed the core of her contempt, not just for Sophia but for my son as well. She didn't see him as a partner, she saw him as a project, an accessory to her ambition. The life you gave me, Michael asked, his voice breaking with a sudden, devastating clarity. Or the life you wanted me to fund for you? He stood up, putting distance between them. All these years, our whole life together, has it all been about money, about what my father could give us? The question hung in the air, heavy and damning. Brenda's face crumpled. She saw she had lost him. The game was over. The final mask fell away, revealing the ugly, grasping truth beneath. Fine, she hissed, her voice dripping with scorn. You're pathetic just like him. Stay here in this dusty old mausoleum with your precious character and your pet project charity case. I'll find an investor who actually understands vision, someone who isn't stuck in the past. She snatched her purse from the sofa. She glanced at the bottle of champagne on the table, a bitter monument to her failed conquest. With a final, hateful glare at both of us, she turned and stormed out of the house, slamming the front door so hard that a picture on the wall rattled. The silence she left behind was profound. Michael stood in the middle of the room, looking broken. He sank back onto the sofa and put his head in his hands, his shoulders shaking with silent sobs. I moved to his side and put a hand on his shoulder. There was nothing to say. He had to process the implosion of his marriage, the complete unraveling of the woman he thought he knew. The climax had not been a shouting match with me, but the terrible, quiet moment of his own realization. He had finally seen the truth, and the price of that clarity was his heart. In the weeks that followed, the fallout settled. Brenda, true to her word, left. She cleared out their apartment, taking everything she considered hers, and served Michael with divorce papers. Her parting shot was a venomous email in which she blamed both me and Michael for ruining her one chance at success. There was no apology, no remorse, only a bottomless well of entitled rage. We heard through the grapevine that she was trying to pitch Elan Vital to other investors, but without my family's perceived backing and with a now tarnished reputation, no one was interested. Her dream evaporated into thin air. Michael was a wreck, but he was also free. He moved back into my house for a while, and we spent long evenings talking, truly talking, for the first time in years. He spoke of his guilt over Sophia, his willful blindness regarding Brenda's character, and his slow drift away from the values he'd been raised with. It was a painful but necessary cleansing. I didn't say "I told you so." I just listened, offering the quiet support of a father who had never stopped loving his son. We were rebuilding our relationship from the ground up on a new foundation of honesty. Professionally, my investment in Aura Collective paid off spectacularly. With the infusion of capital and my mentorship on logistics and scaling, the company exploded. Sophia was a brilliant leader. She hired new staff, expanded her operations, and secured partnerships with major retailers, all while fiercely protecting the ethical, artisan-focused soul of her brand. Aura Collective was featured in business magazines as a major success story, a testament to conscious capitalism. About 6 months after that fateful night, I invited Michael to come with me to visit the new, much larger Aura Collective headquarters. He was hesitant, consumed by shame, but I insisted. "It's time," I told him. Sophia greeted us at the door. She looked radiant, every bit the successful CEO. She looked at Michael, and for a moment the air was thick with unspoken history. "Michael," she said, her voice even. He couldn't meet her eyes. "Sophia," he mumbled, his voice thick with emotion. I am so sorry for everything, for what Brenda did and for what I didn't do. There's no excuse. I was a coward and I've regretted it my entire life." Sophia listened, her expression unreadable. Then she gave a small, sad smile. "Thank you for saying that," she said quietly. "It means more than you know. I accept your apology." She then turned her warm smile to me. "Chester, let me show you what we've built." As she led us through the bustling, vibrant office, I saw the change in my son. He was looking at the world with clear eyes again. He saw the tangible results of hard work, integrity, and resilience. He saw in Sophia not a victim, but a titan. Later, as we stood in her office overlooking the city, Sophia handed me a framed certificate. It was a single share of Aura Collective stock, number 1, issued in the name of my late wife, Helen. "I found out she was a teacher," Sophia said softly. "I wanted her to be a part of this. She raised a good man, Chester. He just got a little lost. I have a feeling she would be very proud of you both today." Tears pricked my eyes. I looked from the certificate to my son, who was watching with a look of profound gratitude. Justice had been served, but something more important had been achieved. My son had found his way back. My investment hadn't just destroyed a bully's fantasy, it had built a worthy dream and in the process had saved my family. Standing there, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't felt in years. The accounts were finally, truly settled.